Welcome to the Project Profile Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Allen. This is a podcast where we explore everything that it takes to market property projects here in Australia. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Project Profile Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Allen. And today we're going to have another deep dive. We're going to look at the basics and deep dive into tracking in property marketing. So this, just like our last subject, is something that is super important, but a lot of marketers struggle with. And similar to split testing, the reason that people struggle with tracking is that it can be really complicated. But just like split testing, it doesn't need to be. Tracking is something that everyone should be doing. Every marketer should be tracking as many different conversion outcome campaigns as possible. They should be tracking all of them. Only because the outcome of each of those campaigns is tied to selling property. So you need to be very, very sure of where these your traffic is coming from so that you can then focus on these important different areas. Property developers, we see this all the time. They spend a lot of money and unfortunately not all of it is effective. Henry Ford had a really famous quote. I think everyone's heard it. He said, "Half of the money that I spend on advertising is not effective. The problem is I don't know which half." And so that is something that we can fix with tracking. Tracking for digital marketing comes down to understanding where your traffic came from that you're sending to something like a sales page, a booking page, a landing page, something that has an outcome that you want people to perform. So you want to be able to confidently say, all right, this traffic came from this source, not this source. So therefore, I'm going to focus more on this source from here on in. Let me give you an example. So if you are running a campaign and you've got a landing page and you're sending traffic to that landing page from an EDM that you've sent out to your database, and you've also got Google ads, search ads, running traffic to that landing page, and you have Facebook ads running traffic to that landing page. So you have three sources of traffic going to that landing page, and you're getting an amazing amount of leads from it. You're getting 100 leads a day, but you don't know which source they're coming from. So without that understanding, you're going to be spending money on platforms that you might not need to be spending on. One of the other important things is it goes beyond just spend. It also helps you to understand the effectiveness of your leads. So for example, in one scenario is that you're spending on these three platforms that are generating 100 leads a day on this landing page. However, you're getting 0 leads from Google and you're getting 0 leads from Meta. So you realize that your email EDM is generating 100% of your leads. That's a really simplistic example, but that's an example of how you can understand which platform then you should be spending your money on. Where it gets complicated, and we'll delve into the solution in a minute, is that in a different scenario where you're getting the majority of the leads through EDM, but you're getting a trickle of them through Google and maybe another trickle through Facebook. But in talking to the sales team, they said that the only leads that are converting are the ones from Google. So if you were looking at your campaign purely from an effectiveness in ad spend, you would think that EDM would be the most successful. However, if you're looking at it from the lens of which one is delivering the best sales outcomes, Google is the one that you should be spending your money on. You just need to be a bit more effective with it. So what's the solution for this? How do you understand how do you look through the different lenses and actually find the right outcome? And the answer to that is using what's called a UTM. Have you heard of a UTM? UTM it's a bit of a funny term. So UTM means Urchin Tracking Module. Urchin was the predecessor to Google Analytics. That's why it's called Urchin Tracking Module. It's something that they invented. Google inherited it. It's used by the industry. Basically what it is when you are creating a URL, so for that landing page, a UTM is a bunch of characters that you add to the end of that URL to direct traffic to that landing page. However, the person that clicks on that URL with the UTM at the end of it, when they click on it and they go to your landing page, they take that UTM with them to that landing page. And so they've got that information in their hand, they don't realize it, and they put in their details, and the UTM goes with their details to you, into your CRM. And so that's why it's so vital to have UTMs, because that handful of data that person is grabbing from that URL, you have within that 4 different fields that you can use. So you can identify things using those 4 fields that can help you to understand, okay, was that EDM, was that Google, or was that Meta? So in the first one, you can actually say which platform that came from. And you can say this was a lead that came from a landing page at this time, here's their details, and it originally came from Facebook, or it originally came from Google, or it originally came from the EDM. So that's the first way that you can identify that. But then you can use the additional ones to drill down into it. So let's look at an example for Meta. So we want to identify that it was Meta, that it was Facebook or Instagram. We can then also look at, on Meta, let's look at the placement. So was it an ad that was delivered in the feed, or in the sidebar, or in the stories, or as in a video? And so you can say that, and then you can say, actually, within that ad set, we had 3 ads, ad 1, ad 2, and ad 3. So in the last part, you can actually say which ad it is. So you can say, this person who gave me their details at this time on this landing page, they came through Meta, Facebook, in the stories, and they clicked on ad number 3. So straight away, you can see how powerful that can be in understanding, with all of the creative variations and all of the different ads and all of the different targeting and all the different platforms, pretty clearly that path to how you got to that buyer. And so with that information, when you put all of that together, all of a sudden you can start to weave together an understanding of your buyer personas. And you can say, we are getting the most success, the most amount of leads, the most cost-effective leads, or the leads that are resulting in the most amount of contracts being signed, or EOIs, through the following personas. You know, it's mums on Instagram who click on ads that have lots of graphic elements in their feed, or it's dads on Facebook, and they only click on ads on videos. And they like the lifestyle ads, you know, so pretty quickly you can start to build these different buyer personas from there. So UTMs are a vital tool in a property marketer's tool set. Yeah, that'll work. So I think that that just about sums it up. If you're not using UTMs, you should be. Long-term benefit is building a feedback loop that makes every campaign smarter. But one thing that you should take away from this is you need to understand what the UTM is measuring ahead of time. And you need to be able to make sure you are setting out what it is what's the objective that you want this campaign to solve. So, you know, is it more leads? Is it more cost-effective leads? Is it more qualified buyers for EOIs and contracts at the end? So, you know, like what is it that you want to set out to do? And then you can measure how to get there. Because if you're measuring what's giving you the most leads, you may not be ultimately figuring out which those leads may not lead to more contracts being sold. So you really need to understand that ahead of time and use your UTMs to track the aspects that will help you to get to that end result more effectively. So just remember, if you're not tracking, you're guessing, and guessing is expensive in property marketing. So get tracking. All right. Thanks again, guys. This has been a short episode, but hopefully a good episode, and you've taken away some good insights. Until next time, I'm Mark from Project Profile, and if you're watching us on your podcast listener of choice, make sure you like and subscribe. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that bell icon and subscribe. Until next time, thanks again.